Okay.
And Kara is calling in.
I can't.
I think did Kara contact you to get? I'll go. Oh, do you want us to make? Oh, no, I think that's good. Oh, right, yeah. Okay. I know she, we're still not live.
We are now.
Oh, or is there voice?
I can mute that.
You look great. Aaron, Ann. Oh, good. I can't hear you now.
Okay. We are
Right.
muted.
Can you hear us now, Wendy?
We're playing with the volume.
Yes.
Dr. Sorensen, please join us at the table, and then we'll bring more. We do, Wendy, I don't think that it's online yet, but.
I'm sharing it right now.
Okay, perfect. There is gonna be something that you can do.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Fabulous.
Sorry, Aaron, were you saying something to me?
Yeah, Dr. Hunt is gonna put something on board docs that'll be shared, that she put together this amazing packet.
I'm
It's
just
like,
do you want me to put it on board docs or share? But I don't have access to board.
oh,
docs.
not
I'm
board
gonna
docs, no, just
it
share it
with you.
with Wendy, yeah. If she's just gonna send it to you, but so that you can follow along during the meeting.
Great,
Perfect, okay.
thanks. So I'll just, on my email, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect.
And I'll get ready, I'll start the meeting here in a second. Abby, do you want to be at the table? Would you like to join us? Yeah, I think what we're just trying to have, if you both want to join us, can I get, like, yeah, the more the merrier. I think up here, let's just have an open dialogue. As long as you guys are comfortable making here.
Here we go.
No?
Okay.
All right. Perfect. And then Emily, if you want to grab a chair and join us too, we can, Ann and I can scoot down too if you want to. Okay. Do we have anybody else that we? Andrew, I think was gonna try to call in. I didn't know if he was in between, if he had meetings or not, if he could make it. So. I have not heard anything. So we'll just go with where we're at right now. All right, let's call to order this work session of the Park City School Board on January 26th at 10 a.m. I'm gonna pledge allegiance. Dan, would you like to lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tanner, do you want to try to sneak up here too? Do you want to come join us as much as possible? We're just trying to make it more of like a big round table. I can scoot over.
Then we're gonna be too far away
Oh,
to get others out here because we're on a different campus.
All right. Thanks, first off, thanks for everybody for coming. Mary and Jake, I know that you guys have to get your stuff covered. I really appreciate you guys being here. I think, can I just turn it over to you, Dr. High, and then
So this has been a work in progress with HR and teaching and learning. So we've put together a little presentation to help you understand the packet we have. I'm gonna let Chad talk you through that, and then we'll kind of talk through an analysis of how we evaluate each of these ideas, so that instead of trying to move through 80 really great ideas, you're really examining some that you think are feasible and able to.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hunt. And on behalf of all of the employees of Park City School District, I want to express to you both and to our other 3 board members how much we appreciate you for your courageous leadership, for your time and dedication, and especially for today, because today is not a time when there are amazing silver bullets, but through consistent little tweaks, progress, ideas, goals, we can make a difference. And what I believe that we as employees feel is that our board cares enough and is committed enough to look at those little things, to know that the silver bullet isn't there, else we would have done it. We are at least willing to make progress. So thank you very much. And with that, we've kind of put this S to the 5 model to describe the staff support during stressful school scenarios. And it's not just the pandemic, but the pandemic has definitely led to the stressful school scenarios, but there are other things that have taken place. And these national issues that are out there, they're not new and unique to Park City School District. They are national issues that every school district is facing, but they're impacting us. And when it impacts us, it becomes really personal and challenging and trying. But I thought it would be fun to look at some quotes from national peer reference journals talking about education and the state of education in our nation. Why education is about to reach a crisis of epic proportions. That may seem drastic, but when you look at the article and look at their research, you start to ask yourself, wow, we are really in a crisis mode, and we are in scenarios that we have never faced before as an educational community and institution. Teachers thought 2021 would be better. Instead, some say it's their toughest year yet. I hear this so much, and I'm sure Superintendent Dr. Hunt hears this on a regular basis.
Have you guys said it?
Oh, yeah.
Please said it.
So that's kind of the environment we're working in. Lawmakers rewriting rules to keep kids in school. So the list of ideas that we're going to share with you today, they shifted even as much as 3 days ago, because things that seemed very feasible 3 days ago no longer are very feasible. And so they were ideas that were high priorities. They were ideas that had minimal costs, but yet the feasibility has now become very significant because we're working under different statutes and a different environment. Pandemic-driven economic workplace and mental and physical health challenges have hit health and education workers particularly hard. I won't take time to read all of these, but as you can see, education is in a state of new territory. And we are working to move forward to figure out, as we're plateauing our summit, climbing our summit, what we can do to make that journey better and be focused on not only the whole child, but the whole employee. So as we have looked at this recent outbreak and the years that have led up to it, there are 3 major themes that I believe that we can look at and categorize the issues and concerns. Those being increased workload, class and assignment coverage, and mental and emotional health and well-being. I'll just briefly discuss each of those 3 themes. Under increased workload, staff report having to complete additional preparation activities with insufficient time to complete them. Today I looked, and just at Ecker, I didn't even look at the other schools, but we have 15 classes that needed to be filled outside of what was filled by the substitutes. And so that impacts everybody. It impacts the teachers that are covering, it impacts the secretary, it impacts the para-educators or the ESPs. Everybody is impacted with the increased workload, an unusual number of the student absences. Because now not only are we trying to teach to those that are here, we're now trying to teach to those that aren't here. And that's just not this new Omicron variant that has been happening throughout the pandemic. And it's also something that we were facing before the pandemic, because the legislature had said with mental health issues, absenteeism is not something that you can really hold parents accountable for anymore. And you have to be flexible and work with students. But that does put additional work on everybody, from the principal to the custodian. Of course, adjustments to curriculum and student groupings are necessary, and lessons have to be designed that are flexible, that you can do in person or you can do remote access. And it's just a changing world. Class and assignment coverage, I've talked a little bit about that, but never have we experienced in education the nationwide shortage of traditional substitutes in food service, transportation. It is just something that is new and we haven't faced. Another thing, we've always done salary comparisons with our comparable school districts. And we've said, you know, what does an HR director make in this school district, in that school district? But now we're at a point when we're looking at ESPs or food service workers. We can't just turn a blind eye to what our local market is paying, because why would they come to the district if financially they're going to be just as well off doing something else in the local market? And we haven't had to face that before. Something I already addressed, and that is that feeling of needing to help. We all want to help. We all want to be supportive, but every time you jump into help, you know that you're neglecting something of your own duties and responsibilities, whether that's giving up a lot of prep or whether that's a teaching and learning. CAO not being able to do her work that day because she's teaching science. And I want to express how grateful and appreciative I am to everybody who's been willing to, from board members, jump in and substitute a class, but it does take its toll and it is challenging. And there's work that either has to be done after hours or isn't getting addressed like we would like it to be because there's not time available. And the mental and emotional well-being, you know, as we continue business as usual, it diminishes, and in uncertain times, you just begin to experience an emotional strain. And we have a focus in our district of the whole student. And when you have that whole student focus, oftentimes the resources go towards that focus. But does that mean maybe that the spaces and the attention to the staff feel a little neglected? And I think that can, in these types of times, lead to staff feeling a little bit frustrated or a little just emotionally challenged or neglected. And as you continue to maintain the current pace during these stressful times, you just know that people are getting worn down and they're feeling it, and we're hearing about it. And as we talk about hearing about it, it's so important to listen to the voices. And our superintendent met with the students and the student leaders and heard their voice. Our teachers are constantly listening to the students and bringing their voice. We have a student board rep that we wanted to hear their voice. We have our association leadership who's at the table. We've got district administrators and of course our school principals. So the information we're sharing and presenting today is a collective voice. And without that voice, it wouldn't be legitimate and helpful information. So we asked for ideas and we received so many ideas. And then as we started to group them and light them into similar ideas, we really had near 50 distinct, unique ideas to consider. And so as we looked at today's discussion, we thought, would it really be fair to bring a list of 50 and try and work our way through that and decide what do we do, where should we give our most attention? And that's where I'm grateful that Dr. Hunt has such a scientific mind and business mind. And with my ideas, we came together, we have this template, and we looked at the 3 themes, and we looked at the ideas and we classified them into a theme. And then we looked at the pros and the cons, meaning Should we really push this forward? Or was some drawback evidence to decide that perhaps this isn't the right time for that idea? And of course, you look at the short and long-term impacts, the implementation feasibility, and the cost. And when you do that, and you put it into some statistical analysis, whammo, you come up with these beautiful diagrams of some ideas. And so as you're looking, we shouldn't ignore these ideas that are in the high cost and in the high feasibility, but they're not low hanging fruit. They're more challenging and they're more difficult. So we don't want to ignore them, but we really need to give time and consideration to jumping into them quickly. These in the middle are really important because there's pros, there's cons, but then when you get here, this is our nice low hanging fruit. And we wanted to make sure that the board was able to look and review those because those are the areas where we have some low cost, we have some low feasibility, and it makes sense to potentially implement those strategies. Any questions so far kind of on how we use the rubric and come up with? So these are all the distinct ideas that we have out there and where they are placed into the chart. And then we jump in and we start taking that purple circle and do I get that? And listing each idea so that we're able to have those conversations and talk about them. So if you look at the first one, no meetings week. It addresses increased workload. It's a high priority. Feasibility is pretty easy to implement. We just say a week before finals, no meetings, except critical ones that are related to student success like IEPs and 504s. The cost is very minimal. So then we say to ourselves, why don't we do that? Because that is something that can reduce stress, give them emotional well-being. Yes.
Just to put in context, about how many hours a week are there meetings? So how much would a teacher get back in that scenario?
I want to turn to our association leadership.
It
Can
depends
you
on
give
the
us
week.
an-
We have a weekly PLC meeting that is during our preps, so we take one prep for that. 75 minutes. I mean, you know, it's not going to be a full 75 minutes all for all of us. I would, on Friday afternoons, I can speak for Akron, that we have meetings from 2 to 4. And that's on an every Friday basis. So,
Anywhere, I'd say like 2.5 to 3 hours a week.
yeah, let's say 3 to 4.
Yeah.
You know what's significant about that idea is the timing of it, right? Because the last week of the quarter is when you're doing great. So if we're trying to acknowledge, oh my gosh, I had to give up 2 prep periods this week because I was helping in other classes and I also have meetings, this is a way to kind of say anything that we can take away, we take away that week because it's got an additional stress that it normally would.
Well, and then also elementary schools teachers have additional meetings than we do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they have certain benchmarks that they have to reach, that they have to spend their preps doing. And then they also have extra faculty meetings at some of the schools.
And could some of those meetings be like, you know, read this email, or, I mean, would you still get the
Oh,
information, but with other
absolutely,
methods,
sure.
so you're not gonna have time to take, sorry, Dr. Moses.
So this is something that we would just then build into the calendar. So if we were looking at our school calendar, we literally would build it in. So
Right.
all of the administrators and teachers would all know that that's there.
Okay. And is that something feasible to implement as soon as possible, like next week? No meeting. Is that, okay?
We want to, yeah.
What's that?
Yeah, we want to schedule it a certain number.
Okay.
of times
Yeah.
a year, right? 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, whatever seems to work. But it actually helps administrators too, because it gives them some time to capture, right? The work.
So sorry, is it weekly that this one?
No.
Oh, it's
This
not.
would happen certain weeks of the school
Yeah.
year.
Okay, that's
and
good
it
to
would
know.
happen
So I'm,
at
in my head, I'm thinking you're gonna get 3 hours a week back. but
Yeah, no,
that's not true.
typically it's the week before like your quarters.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Again, we could look at that, it can be implemented, right, anytime, we just have to make sure that our required meetings, as Brian mentioned, so that earlier required meetings.
President, and I want to best use your time. So I was thinking originally maybe we would take first 5 on the list and then maybe jump down to the bottom 5 so we can kind of see it.
That's perfect. You just keep us in line. Keep us in line. So we don't get too chatty. That's perfect. And if you want to go through the whole first column, and then we can move on to the next. So if you want to go through all of this, if this is like the low line through the middle, then let's just do that. Let's go through the whole low line and then we'll.
Okay, and I'll just kind of give you a quick summary of each of them.
That sounds
And then
perfect.
jump in and ask questions at
Okay.
any time. Equalized summer compensation. So right now, we really wanted to have our teachers and our ESP staff participate in our summer program. And so through the association agreement, it states that instead of a set rate, that we would pay them their hourly rate. But the challenge that we have is those that are non-district employees, we're still paying at a set rate, and it's significantly different. And I'm a little bit concerned that we need to be giving equal pay for equal work. And so working with Todd Hopper, but that is just one of our next priorities, is the low-hanging fruit, is to make sure our summer compensation is in alignment.
So we are anticipating a robust summer program like last year because we have lots of data that indicates that kids really grew with that additional support and that additional programming. So we work with community ed, with the school district, and have really targeted academic time and then also enrichment time for kids, which is a great experience for them.
Can I ask a
Increased
question?
compensation for subs. This is a unique one because it seems like such a no-brainer. But then when you talk to the other districts that have done that, it's a real recognition and appreciation to those that are subbing, but they are not seeing significantly more subs coming into the system. And that's the question that we dialogued, superintendent, business administrator, et cetera. How much do you increase bus drivers that you would really ever see more people coming in to drive bus? If you raised it to $50 an hour, would all those positions get filled or would they not? And there's no silver bullet, there's no right answer, but we do have to be consistent and fair with our labor market, and we have to be saying, what can we do to fill these staff shortages? And as we looked at the idea, some giving consideration to increasing the compensation for subs is one of those high priorities and meets the metrics. The retreat and celebration dinner, and this is an emotional and mental well-being, where the district staff and the Board of Education have an opportunity to do some retreat type of activities and have a dinner and an appreciation for saying thank you, job well done. Morale boosters, and in my year here, superintendent has often been saying we need to do what we can do to continue to have that morale, that constant recognition for significant life advance. The faculty lounges being stocked with food and just appreciation. There's so many things that have been clustered under the morale boosters. But as you look at what businesses are doing, this is not new to the business world. Education has tended to not, whether it's because of statute, policy, but there's been a difference in the morale boosters that can happen in an educational institution or a business institution. And then what about, do you want to have some impact on that? Or some express any thoughts?
Sure, well, I mean, really, we need to be shifting our district towards a human-centered approach to what we're doing, because our kids will only be as successful as the teachers are being able to relate to them without additional stress or strain. And we need to be certain that we're meeting the same sociological needs for our adults as we are trying to do for our kids. And there's a lot of research that really points to the importance of environment in a work area. You know, it's not by accident that really progressive companies have ping pong tables and free food. And I mean, that's done not only just because it's a great recruiting mechanism, but also because it really speaks to being able to create an environment where people can feel comfortable and give their very best work. So
we have a lot to do in education to make that better. I think Park City is a perfect place to lead out and start creating some of those environments now.
And I don't know if this idea stayed in the list or not. I don't know what the rest of the list, but this idea of even supporting a district-wide well-being app, like Headspace or Calm, that in there, great. That's even something adults or students could benefit from. And again, not everybody's going to link onto that, but there are going to be some people who really appreciate that thought that they could download that and use that in their own space, their own time, without limits. That's something we have our foundation here, because we know you're always looking for creative and innovative ideas, and also to maybe, after we go through our list, share some of the things that you guys have done, because I know your efforts have really helped to bolster staff throughout these past 2 years. We want to appreciate that very much. But again, if there are more ideas, we know that you're always looking. Things like that, I think, can be really helpful. But I do know in the business world, you're right. They have all kinds of, like my son who works at Goldman, right? He gets free lunch every day that he goes in. He gets either a card, like a code where he can go on and get delivery of a lunch, or they have lunch brought in, so things like that, so that it's one less thing to worry about in the morning.
One thing that our PTO also did a couple of years back was send a massage therapist to have people sign up for like a 10 or 15 minutes time with them during their prep or their lunch, something that happened once a year.
A chair massage.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one made it in here too, because it was really successful.
Yes.
I think that the key for you as a board will be to remember that you don't have to create either or, right? You don't have to be thinking we have to do it at the level that business does it, or we just can't do it. I think you can think about how you add enough that it begins to shift, because we're not going to be able to bring in a gymnasium and a yoga instructor, and there's pieces of that though that we can do. So as you see these, instead of trying to think 100% solution, check the box, think of it more as, well, this isn't 100% solution, but 50 here and 50 here and 50 here is 100.
That's not like quote, but I know some of these are not specifically related to our teachers necessarily, but I want to get back to their students, of course, our critical mission, but probably the first quote. Teachers are so essential to the future that we have to take care of them in the present. And that's why I think we wanted to have this meeting, and why we are here, to ensure that that's our focus and finding ways to take care of our, so they can do their work.
Sorry, I know you're gonna go on. Andrew was able to join the meeting, and so is Kara. Did you forward them okay, so you should have it. Okay, thanks. Everybody had it.
An employee referral program has been very commonplace outside of education for many years. It's becoming even more common within education. We're starting to see it right even within our own state, and certainly out of our state. So that is something that is an idea for consideration. This bus driver training, it's actually a little bit more than training even. It's determining a way for our internal employees to become trained as bus drivers, and then provide a way for them to either receive additional compensation, and we know it'll be at the overtime hour, but it's probably more cost effective than charter buses or no buses at all in dealing with that public. And so just an example, a custodian may go through this internal driver training, receive the appropriate licenses, and then they may say, you know what, I'm working during 3 to 5, but I would be happy to go drive this bus because it's critical, and then I'll come back and finish my 3 to 5 work later. Or we may say, okay, I don't want to come back, and we look at contractual services. There's different ways to do that. But just trying to think creatively and outside of the box, how can we get people that are right here that in those emergency situations would be trained and ready to do that important need of transportation.
We could all as a district team set our goal.
I've heard you say it a lot, so.
I can try.
Your risk management.
I'm still way more comfortable solving and driving.
That's right, so I thought you were.
I could do better with a bus driving than I think the nursing. I didn't take it over the nursing, I just can't. Do it. And I'm not in the medical field for
Yeah, we all have our,
things.
absolutely. PTO Counseling Booster, this is an idea where an employee may have a mental health day, not costing us a substitute. So the counselors come in and do their curriculum that's required under the state law, and they're covering the class for the paid time off for that employee. This is another fun one, the surprise team break. So during that common prep time, or maybe not even that, a group comes in and we say, we're taking over your class and here's a $10 Starbucks card, and you and your team are going out to Starbucks for 45 minutes to enjoy time together. Where's that? Oh, yeah. Absolutely. ESP rovers, and this would be a position in each school, and they would not have, they would get like a daily assignment. And so basically they're going and, you know, they're not going to be assigned to sub in a particular class all day. Their job is to jump in and say, Mary, you never get a break. Do you want 10 minutes so that you can go and take care of whatever you need to take care of that you never get time? Or Chad, you have a really hard student during this time. I'm going to be in here every day with you for those 20 minutes and just provide you a little bit of relief with that student.
One of the things I love about this idea is that it may free up the opportunity for our teachers to participate in student IEP meetings without having to be at, before or after school. Somebody could pop in and that allows a lot more flexibility for parents who really want to have teachers in those meetings and can't come at those times.
It's just a roaming rover that helps out where needed. Permanent subs in each building. I know there could be a great conversation around this, and business administrator is anxious to engage in that conversation. He and I have had several conversations. My wife and I, we were talking about this last night. She said that permanent sub that they've had in her building for the last 2 years has been a lifesaver. So you can look on both ends of the continuum. I'm not saying it's a silver bullet, but it is an idea that's kind of in that medium range as to maybe we want to consider looking at that as being something permanent and not just a temporary COVID relief.
So we do know that during COVID, though, that just to give you a price tag, we do know that was about a $360,000 price tag during year one of COVID for us to have those people. But what a great way to kind of step into the profession or potentially step back into the profession if you've been home. But it is a significant staffing. It is a true staff position. So you're paid as the first year teacher, salary rate plus full benefits. So it is a great way to get into the field though.
As I've looked at this, other districts have done it differently. They've actually worked with their contractual service company, and the contractual service company or the substitute company provides each building with a permanent sub. Now, the drawback of that is they are probably not a licensed educator, because many licensed educators do not want to take a full-time role. But you do have that constant and consistent coverage, and it can be a little bit less expensive. But I really think the model that we have applied, where we give that employee a benefit, has allowed us to get some very quality permanent subs. Schedule flexibility. This is a balance with an HR nightmare versus a very positive employee thing to do. And that's basically on those Friday afternoons when students aren't here, saying we value our professionals enough that even though it's your contract time, if you choose to not be in the building, you go and do something else, we know that those hours are being made up elsewhere. So As I mentioned, from the traditional structure of HR, it causes you to squirm in your seat a little bit. But then on the other hand, we're looking at strategies during uncommon times. And so we want to make sure that we're turning every rock while we're looking at that.
Yeah, like Mary and Jake, how many hours would you say you actually spend outside of work working? A lot, right? Yeah. So I think this is a nod that, oh, that it's nice to be valued as a teacher for the work you do that people don't see. And in the same way that we have exempt and non-exempt employees, that's really one way that we can say, hey, you're doing this work, take the afternoon, it just is there's.
Yes,
The
because I will say
feasibility
that that's
part
one of
is
the
the
number
source.
one thing that teachers say that they need is more time. Number one, they need more time. So that would be good.
Staff recognition program, we talked about that a little bit with morale boosters, but just making sure that we're recognizing accomplishments, achievements, and recognizing them for their profession. This idea of a new skill or hobby sounds very fun and exciting. Districts that have chosen to do that, maybe a CTE teacher teaches a class on 3D printing, and staff can go in and do some 3D printing. They get to take home the product. Or maybe our culinary instructor teaches them how to make an amazing dessert, and on Friday night they're taking home a cake to their friends or family, etc. There's all different sorts of things that could be done in this new skill and hobby. It could include everything from cross-country skiing and all the things that we provide to our students, or it could be a personal thing. Maybe somebody knows how to knit, and there are other people that I never got to learn how to knit, and it's something I would like to do. And so we provide that opportunity for our employees, sharing with each other. Physical exercise, maybe having classes where people can come in the morning before work or after work, and having some classes that they can do to save them from having to buy a gym membership, or that they still get those same type of benefits available through work. End of year bonus, I know it was something that was appreciated last year from the state legislature. There were parameters put on there, and so something that the legislature wanted to make good. Some employees received, some didn't, and that caused some conflict. But there was a recommendation that we look at end of year bonuses. Other districts have done that through their negotiation. They've carved out certain amounts of money and not put it on the pay scale and given them as year-end bonuses. And there's pros and cons to that from even a retirement perspective. But again, it's an idea worth consideration.
Chad, before we go on, I want to acknowledge on the Zoom, we're having some people asking questions and things and chatting. This is not a Zoom chat. It's a work session for the board, the administrators, the students, and the teachers. So we're not going to be doing public comment or responding to a chat during this particular session. Thanks.
We want to build culture. We want to build pride in our school district and in our schools. And swag is just a way of saying, I am proud to be a Park City Miner, or I'm proud to be a Mustang, etc. Wear your red. And so one of the ideas is let's have a catalog or a online store where people could go and choose an item of clothing to show their pride. And again, it's small, but it's a way to really start to improve not only the culture and appreciation to the employees, but celebration of where we work, and that people know that we're proud to be part of this organization. I'm going to have Dr. Hunt take this one because she's more familiar with the
Which one?
Aguilar.
Oh, this was put forward by a principal who is aware, and in full disclosure, Elena and I worked in the same district for a long time, and is somebody I know well, so it was kind of fun to see other people know her and recognize her. But right before COVID, Elena started realizing that teachers have to deal with students who are struggling with post-traumatic stress, and they themselves have experienced, childhoods or issues that they maybe don't have support with, and that can tend to be a very triggering event for an adult. So she has worked and put together several different workshop series and opportunities for teachers to be able to build resiliency as they help students cope with traumatic events. And, you know, there are many people out there. This is really her name as a placeholder. I think you would want to thoughtfully select somebody. And the pros and cons are in there. I would invite you on some of these ideas to look, right? Because while it's a great idea to bring that in, at the same time, we're talking about the workload on teachers and it may feel like we're asking them to do something additional, attending something and filling out work. But, you know, so there's just a lot to think about with those. And that's why they kind of fall in this middle range.
Superintendent already addressed the mindfulness app, but do you want to expound on some of the thinking behind that?
Yeah, actually, we talked about this a little bit in our student council meeting. Emily, just this idea that, you know, providing, and again, not every single person would respond to this, but again, like I wouldn't want the massage chair, right? Like I would say, I really want the massage chair, but I would really like the Calm app or the Headspace app just to try it for a month or two, to see if something that I can pull up, or I use, you know, fitness app just reminds me that I go to move for 10 minutes. But just again, some flexibility and ideas for employee assistance, and again, this is something that even students might, when keeping up, right, might really like to have an app like that, or if there's a student-friendly app even younger. Just think out of the box, maybe.
I'm pretty sure everybody wants to hear James Earl Jones talk today. Not even fun day.
Right. But again, something you could do at home. But anyway, just an EAP sort of idea.
We've addressed the professional faculty rooms, but that is again in alignment with how do we look at what business has done to increase morale and to do recruitment retention activities and try and model some of that. And look at our workspaces for our faculty to provide that space that employees would benefit from.
Can I talk about the teachers?
Yes, please.
So I think it's great when we can be synergistic and look through ideas that would help relieve some of the stress, but that also push us maybe to a new area, an opportunity to pilot in a way that we would have before. As we're looking at our reconfiguration and we're creating 6, 8, 9, 12 models, one of the things that our special education director has indicated is that we do a really good job with inclusion, but there are opportunities for us to provide even more support for structural and social behavior within the classroom to help students who struggle, you know, or need help in their IEPs around behavior. And co-teaching becomes a very thoughtful model to be able to have a special education teacher partnering with a general ed teacher and really providing the kinds of supports that we need in tier 1, as opposed to trying to always put it into an IEP. So you'll notice though, this is expensive because it's hiring additional teachers or redesignating what teachers do. And the feasibility of this is difficult. I mean, it's an implementation that you want to do well and want to do right. But it is a direction that special education has been trying to go and is thinking around a continuum of services. So this might be an opportunity to pilot that a little bit and see if it really is going to provide some of the benefits we're hopeful before we fully invest in bringing the new model.
You know, we have one-time employee bonus again. Was that related to health and wellness activities this time versus just overall bonus?
Yeah, bonuses came out in a couple of weeks. They came out as, sometimes you'll see it listed as for ESP staff who are covering workload of people who are out, but they're not necessarily getting a sub. They're just doing additional work during the day. You also see it as end of the year bonus or a one-time right now. This is the stressful time, but it came up in a couple of different places. I think the pros and cons of that were discussed were, we really know in the research that one-time compensation doesn't always help people feel valued. But in situations where people are feeling stressed or maybe they don't have the time to do things that they normally would do to bring in income, it may really be an appreciated bonus.
Also, in this category, we had our conversation with Mary and Jay of You know, sometimes you just have to combine a class. And so maybe giving even a $35 one-time bonus for that day for a teacher who taught 2 classes combined because the other teacher was out and we didn't get a substitute. So all that was kind of categorized under that, but it is a way to say, thank you, we acknowledge and appreciate you're doing extra.
The amount of people that teach her, so.
Yeah, so you'll see that in 3
And
different
that would be in
places.
addition to the LLP that they would have.
Yeah.
Right,
Right,
yeah.
right.
Yeah, that's why you'll see those in 3 different places and 3 different names here, but there's some more, right?
Staff counselor, that's an out-of-the-box idea, but I think it's very innovative and definitely there is cost associated, but it's worth exploring. And this would be a person that would roam the district. And in addition to your counseling insurance benefit that you can use, this would be a person that can give you that immediate support that you need. Maybe you're dealing with COVID crisis, maybe you're dealing with something that you are not expecting. Maybe you're wanting some career counseling and deciding where you see yourself in the next 5 years. And so we're hoping that we give consideration to someone with the expertise and skills that could be a roving counselor and a support to our staff.
Yes, I believe that came out of one of our brainstorming sessions during the beginning of COVID, if you recall, so here you go, feedback. Yeah.
Collaboration Fridays and remote Fridays. Again, some of this became more challenging with the legislative that we don't have the flexibility that we had 3 days ago. And so again, but their ideas worth exploring. And so you can see that the score changed on the implementation feasibility because of legislation and impact. But just opportunities to really utilize those Fridays to the fullest extent and to be able to find opportunities for our teachers to have more time, more flexibility, and not have that where they've got to have lessons for the remote and lessons for the in-person and then spend Friday afternoon helping those that were remote that week. Remote Friday allows everybody to be on the same modality for that day and hopefully freeing some time for students. We have just a few others to look at. Moratorium on extra duty assignments. We have a lot of people that have extra duty contracts, whether it be coaching and extracurricular activities, whether it be programs that are coming from the state.
Writing curriculum, helping develop.
So one of the ideas is just saying, you know what is absolutely mission critical that you couldn't live without? And then maybe just taking a break from some of those others so that people do not have to have those additional contracts because these are done outside of their work contract. Intensive volunteer program. I think this is great. One of the things we've tried to do is limit the people in our schools, and that has reduced the number of volunteers that are participating. But reigniting that commitment and that support through training and education and preparing them so that they can go into our schools and be safe themselves and provide safety for our students. But getting that class coverage, we have students that are teachers that are requesting to teach remote because they're feeling well enough they could teach the full day, but they need to be on quarantine. But we still have to bring in a sub or do LOP so that we have an adult in that class. If we had a volunteer program, the volunteer could handle the behavior management, the teacher's part of that class, they're working collaboratively together. And we're reducing costs for the district and still accomplishing the mission critical education that we're striving to do. A pet friendly policy. And again, you have to look at state statute and you have to look at the district practice and where we want to go. But this is broad enough that it's talked about having almost like a pet center, just like a child care center where pets are able to come and be part of your work, and on your break, you're able to go and have that time with them, and also reviewing what is the feasibility of having pets on campus. Again, these are just ideas that we're exploring for the board to to have some time to think it out and see if it would be beneficial. And the last one is the professional development, and that's actually giving funding to every employee and allowing them to choose their professional development to engage in experience off campus. It would have to be limited within that budget, but as a teacher, Mary could choose a music conference once a year. She'd be able to count on that, and she would decide in collaboration with her principal, that's how it's going to help her professionally. And she would have that chance to network, maybe in state or out of state, based on her choice. And so definitely an idea worth merit, but there's some cost and there's some feasibility because they're out of the building. And there's pros and cons to all of these ideas. And so that's been the fun journey that we have been on for the last few weeks. And again, I just want to re-emphasize how much I appreciate personally, and I know representing the employees of this district, that there's time and consideration being given to the stressful situation that we're working under, and the commitment to not only students but to employees. Anything that
I just think what a great opportunity to have people around the table to start thinking not only about how do we deal with the stressors that exist right now, but how do we think about what the future of education looks like and doing what we need to retain our excellent employees. You know, we already have a lot of unique factors when it comes to recruiting and trying to hire people in a small community town, small town. But we need to be very thoughtful about how we treat the people that are here and making sure that they're good for years to come.
So President, Superintendent, however you'd like to go.
So this was not meant to be limiting in any way. It was just meant to be a start to kind of get our juices flowing and be thinking, and then we will talk about some feasibility or things that resonate with people. So I would love to do very short, Kara, Abby, I would love to hear just some of the things you guys have done and invested.
Can we first, I have 2 board members that have to go, and I know that they have a couple of questions, so I do, because it's super important, but I know that I don't know if Kara has any, but I also know Andrew is on a limited time and has some questions about what we just went over. So yeah, if you guys wouldn't mind.
Yes, that would be great.
Anything quickly, because I think you're on limited time.
Yeah. Who? Me?
Hold on, we can't hear you.
Oh, let me try this again. Can you hear me now?
I don't know. Kara, hold on one sec.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Almost.
Hold on, hold on.
Volume, 1 second.
Okay, let me try.
Perfect. No, we're
No,
good.
you're
We're good.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you for letting me speak first because I do have to go. But I love all these ideas to appreciate our teachers. I think everyone knows there's a lot of stress, and I think out of all these ideas, I think the ones that make sense to me where I'd like to start is giving teachers more time. Now, as my career profession was a teacher and I worked 32 years, I was stressed just on a normal teaching year if I didn't get time to prep, because it was critical, and you have to do some baseline understanding of where your students are, where they're going. And if you don't prep correctly, you just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it anyway. So I like the ideas of no meetings, and that would give teachers more prep time. And also on Fridays, when the kids leave, I'm assuming that every school has Friday afternoon time for professional development. But how about we give the teachers a break and let them do what they think is necessary, even if it is going cross-country skiing. I mean, mental health is the most important part of this. So that's where I would start.
Thanks, Kara.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah, so I would kind of echo what what Kara said in terms of providing time, and what I've asked a couple of times, and I'd love to hear more from Dr. Sorensen is, what is the average number of teachers absent in every school? And why don't we, on a daily basis, and why don't we actually hire permanent subs to fill in, right? I'm sure we have enough data over the past several years to know, okay, at Trailside, there's on average 2 teachers out a day. At the high school, we have on average 3 teachers out a day, whatever it is. And let's look to mitigate that, because that's really where a lot of the loss of prep time is coming, right? We continue to hear that teachers are forced to cover for other teachers. They're losing their prep time. And we've tried to hire subs. We've tried to outsource the hiring of subs. It doesn't work. And I think that's a nationwide issue in every job, because part-time work has shifted from what it was traditionally to now the gig economy, right? And you can use your phone, turn on an app and deliver food, drive a car, all kinds of different things on your own time that are a lot easier to make money on than having to go into a building or work in an office or go to school, et cetera, right? So I think, I'd really love to see how many teachers on average are out every day at each of our 7 schools, and try to figure out, okay, what is the cost of having those spots filled on a permanent basis, right? With benefited, licensed jobs, right? Because if we're, looking at how much we're paying our substitutes for a licensed teacher, they're making $17 an hour, which is less than you can make stocking shelves at Smith's. And, we are just behind the wage inflation, and we always will be. And I think it's going to be really difficult, in today's economy to continue to compete, right? So, I think we have to start looking at making them full-time positions and changing the model. It's a nationwide problem. It's a problem in every industry. And we have to, I think we have to tackle this differently.
Yeah, Andrew, I think that's one of the challenges. If you just do one per building, you have that one coverage, but there's still a lot of coverage that isn't exist, that you still rely on your substitutes to fill. And I think what I heard you say is, look at those averages, and if you're averaging 3 at the high school every day, then maybe we're looking at having 3 permanent substitutes.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. I think it's let's look at the averages, figure out how many we need every day. And, look, and obviously COVID is slightly different than a normal year because there's more people out sick, et cetera. But if we average it over 5 years and we start by trying to hire that many spots, let's give that a shot, right? And try to look at this in a more creative way than simply, okay, we're going to continue doing the same thing we've done, because it doesn't work, right? And then on top of that, we have to raise the wage, right? We can't pay people. They're not showing up. So, and I understand why, right? I can make more money stocking shelves at Smith's, or I can make more money driving an Uber than I can coming into a classroom. And teaching is really a tough job, and we're not talking about people who are career educators necessarily. We're talking about people who are looking for part-time work. And unfortunately, that landscape has just changed, right? So I just want us to be ahead of this, and it's only going to get harder.
Thanks, Andrew. Do you have anything else?
Thanks, guys. Nope, that's it.
Okay. Wendy, are you and Ann okay to hold for a second and jump back in to have Abby, or do you guys want to ask questions right now?
Well,
It's up to you.
I have a question, 2 questions.
Wendy?
I'll do whatever you want. I can stay here the whole time, so I'm happy to wait and hold them. I'm writing them down. I have questions, but follow up, but maybe they'll be answered if we continue the discussion.
All right, perfect, thanks. All right, I'll turn it over to you. Great, thanks.
Well, I think as Dr. Gilday mentioned, this has been a topic of conversation among our staff and with the administration of the school district for the last couple of years, to see there's small things that we can do to, release the pressure valve for teachers in the classroom.
Kara has overseen all the work we've done, so I'll let her talk in detail about all the different things that we've been trying the last couple of years.
Yeah, kind of the first thing that we took on was expanding our express grants. When we first went to remote learning, it was really funding everything from books for kiddos at home to helping out with technology. I mean, really anything that teachers needed to make their life a little bit easier.
Just to layer into that, the big piece of what we thought it was important was a very quick turnaround and a low bar for the ask. So express grants are for $1,000 and below. And when we went remote, we made a commitment to, grant the money within 24 hours of the request. And now, with a little bit more space from the emergency of COVID and going remote, it's 1 week. So it's that urgency in getting the dollars into their hands quickly that we think is also very important.
Such a 48 to 72 hours.
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah, no worries, but it's still, provided there's not a big issue, we can get it turned around generally pretty quick. That morphed into last year recognizing that life is crazy with both remote, in person, and just kind of the first full school year of the pandemic. In addition to keeping our expansion of the express grants, we also had a commitment to teacher and educator wellness. We were able to get some funds from Community Foundation to help with employee emergencies. So it's kind of like a basic needs assistance where if teacher needs help with rent or mortgage, groceries, kind of anything like that, we could step in and help. Also collaborated with Jewish Family Service to kind of harness on with some of their basic needs support. JFS also did a mindfulness training for teachers. It was free for participants. It was, I think, well received and successful. They ended up kind of expanding and doing the second session of the training. Then we also started coffee campers last year, partnered with Lucky Ones to bring the coffee campers to each building as well as the district office here. Plus, just did some other kind of interesting things, promoted other community programs for mental health. Did a couple of events targeting mental health and kind of like reframing expectations, during the pandemic, both for parents, teachers, just kind of the community at large. Then this year, it's kind of squishy. We kind of didn't know what the year was going to be like, and we tried to pivot and adjust. I got express grants so wrong this year. I didn't think that there would be the need. So we worked with our board to increase our budget for those emergency express grants, as well as we brought the coffee camper back in November right before Thanksgiving. Really want to make that as part of the gratitude, showing our gratitude for teachers. And I just want to say, just want to distinct out to that. It's not just for teachers. It's recognizing that like every person in the building plays a vital role in keeping our kids safe and learning. So really pointing that out. It's kind of easy lift. You just bring up the whole school at a community. We've also updated kind of our list of educator discounts that are offered throughout the community. It's up on our website. Push that out. We started this year an educator newsletter that is specific for teachers that promotes a lot of these opportunities, express grants, as well as get employee discounts. Our next one will be coming out here pretty quick in February. And then just to note as well, while we do not have money left in our educator fund for basic needs, we've been working to push out that JFS still has funds available and working continuing that partnership to push out to the community that if you have needs, JFS may be able to help. So I'm really trying to kind of leverage the resources within the community and funneling them here into the school district. And a lot of just kind of talks looking forward as we look at next year, how we can keep our commitment to educators. Oh, and something, I'm sorry to kind of be like jumping all around, but things keep popping into my head. A shift that we made last year, we've done Excellent Educator Express for a number of years, recognizing, excellent teachers in our schools. And last year, we, kind of came to the staff conclusion that like, there's not just one in every building, it is literally the whole, district that has kept this boat afloat. It's everybody. So, working to, put the banners up on Main Street, recognizing all of our employees, different offerings, caramel apples, pizza, just different ways to recognize that, everybody is important and vital and that we value them. So, that's kind of been a lot of what we've been trying to do is casting a wide, net in terms of, working to support everybody that keeps the schools open. So, am I missing anything?
One other thing I would add is just our communications efforts through our own newsletter and social media push of elevating educators and the work that they're doing in the classrooms and promoting gratitude and expressing gratitude towards education leaders.
Well, your partnership has really been critical. It always is, but these past 2 years, especially because you were so willing to, I mean, you can use the Ross Geller term, right, pivot. You were so willing though to just take on whatever it was, whether it was making sure we had the Lucky Ones coffee trucks on a regular basis, whether it was helping privately educators over a hump or staff member over a hump, and providing dollars directly to classrooms. So really, it's been so helpful, more than the monetary, but just that entire emotional well-being feeling. So I wanted you to be here to not only to hear kind of different brainstorm ideas, but also to share that because that's gone beyond the dollars to just really making everything feel valued and supported. So thank you for that.
Yes, and I would say on a teacher level, definitely. Of course, the coffee is lovely. We love that. Thank you so much for all that you do. We really couldn't do our jobs as effectively without you. So it's extremely helpful. One question that I had, do the teachers need to sign, or do people need to sign up to receive the newsletter?
It gets distributed through the school district. and
Okay,
it goes
so
to all-
you bill it out to everyone.
Yeah, it goes out to
automatically?
everyone.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and it's actually, I think Lori Pierce forwards it out to Park City School District all.
And just a huge shout out to people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know that I get it, I just don't remember if I signed up.
Yeah, we push it out to everyone, and we're here too to listen, because we know that this is a really huge, important topic, and we know that well-being and emotional wellness is, teachers have the #1 impact on student success, and so we want to keep learning and keep trying new things and pivoting to be able to support Park City School District educators.
Yes, thank you very much.
Students, Emily, do you have any student ideas that you thought up since we spoke, or even want to share something?
Well, yesterday, Mr. Counseling, and I did meet with the rest of the student council, and we brainstormed a few ideas, and a lot of them were kind of repeats of what we discussed. That would be more of the remote Fridays. That seems like a very popular option, allowing students to not having work assigned that day and have everything due from that weekend and the deadline for Friday, allow them to catch up and feel completely caught up. And then the weekend is more of a mental restart to start again on Mondays. A lot of the ideas were if a spike were to occur in cases that students with immunocompromised family members or those who feel generally unsafe being in school have an opportunity to go remote, or those students just in general who feel uncomfortable being in school have the opportunity to go remote. So I think that would be the opportunity to. And I know it's a lot to ask teachers to do that, especially to go back to what we were doing last year, but doing those Zooms for those who were quarantined, who weren't at home. Granted, we did have like a designated camera for those classes. It was very helpful to the students. They still felt like a normal routine. They were still going to class. It still felt like they were getting that same instruction as those in person. And then also pushing articles to parents and like encouraging them, because I know we can't really require them anymore, but to encourage parents to push it to students as well. A lot of it, parents are like, you can just go, you're fine, don't really worry about what everyone else is saying. It is a big issue, and I think that it's a lot more of communicating with students and parents that it does help everything. A fun idea was not fun.
is to try to make some longer lunches, even 10-15 minutes, helps kids spread out and feel like they can have that ability to still make it to class on time. I don't know how people that is with the school day going, a lot of them were just that extra little minute to feel like they have that little more control to get themselves to class on time, to feel as though they are safe, they can spread out. It was a fairly popular one with that. Another one was to go remote for either going after like the week following breaks. That way students have time to get their should get tested and they can really gauge what they need to do, especially after being after those breaks. Or going remote for midterms. I know that's a stressful week to add on COVID on top of that. It was just another idea we thought that might help students. I think that is some of what we have brainstormed in class. So.
Excellent. Thank you guys for being here and sharing with us. Yes, Mary.
I just wanted to talk about the lunches really quick because you have a good point. In that the lunches are very short in the secondary schools from 6 through 12 period. And I know that, it's very important, I think, for high school students, especially to be able to kind of separate a little bit, go off campus, maybe go to Alberto's and get that mini cheese, and it's important for that. At the elementary level, they do have 45 minutes because they have the time to eat, and then they also have a recess afterwards. So I think that that's definitely something that we could maybe look at as far as scheduling, maybe a little bit longer lunch for those so that it's equitable between elementary and secondary schools.
I do know that we do only have a half hour, 29-minute lunches. And a big part about being on campus at high school is the ability to go off for lunch, to feel as though you have that control to go off campus and then come back. And I know there has been a lot of talk about restricting it to just being on campus, that we're no longer allowed to go off campus because students don't have enough time to get there and back. Because you go off 15 minutes, come back 15 minutes, and you don't even have an opportunity to eat or feel like you can take a break from the general environment of school. It just feels like a lot of back and forth, and then there's no break time for that. So I think a big thing is to actually keep the off-campus part and allow students to maybe even just extend it that way they have the ability to come back and reset and get ready for the next place.
Jake, what did you think about Emily's idea related to like due dates? So that like that idea of everything being kind of due on a Friday, but then the kids having some.
Yeah, you might say I was like nodding, but I'm a huge proponent of homework over weekends and breaks. Like I think that should be policy. And it's not just me. I've got colleagues who feel the same way. I had a colleague who was on a trip with his family, and his two sons were doing homework like the whole drive, and he's like, this is family time. They're doing homework. I don't know how that would be received across the board amongst teachers, but I know personally, just as I want to break over a break, and if kids want to break over a break. So I like that idea. I think that's one to explore, and I think it would lower some of the stress of a Sunday night, kids that have late trying to finish their work. Yeah, I think that's an excellent idea to explore for sure.
Do you want to talk to the board about any of the priorities? Well, for answering your
I think we have a-
questions and then-
Yeah, I think we have a couple questions, and then I think let's answer the questions and then move to the priority. I'm gonna let Ann go first, and then I'll have you go, Wendy, if that sounds good, and then I'll end. And first off, I just want to take a second. Thank you guys for all of your hard work, all of you, for coming today and being at this table with us. So.
Yeah, I second that. I mean, your idea of you're in the trenches every single day. I can tell you, I think, but I'm not there. So appreciate everybody's perspective, and I think this is amazing that everybody's coming to the table to solve problems in all our aspects. So, one comment I did want to just say is, I think what you just alluded to is the elementary needs versus the secondary school needs, because some of these may work perfectly for you guys, but not in the elementary. So as we're kind of going through the list of which ones to boxes for both, to make sure, an elementary may have this great and it may not just apply to secondary. So that was one. In going through this and hearing time, we need more people, we need more time. Well, I believe there are people that are in the building. There are already ESPs that are at 32 or 35 hours that want more time. could we entertain extending them to 40, giving them full 40-hour benefits? They're there, they're trained, they've been around. We have lots of turnover. I'm talking especially in the sped world. We turn over an HP every year. Tremendous amount of effort on the girls' part. So if we could extend and make this more desirable of a job, I don't know, you guys. So say you're at 32 hours and you want to be at 40, we're going to give you 40. You're going to now be that rover. You're going to now be the lunch person. You're going to now be whatever the front office needs. You're going to be that sub because third grade somebody has to get their kids sick. So I think we have people that we can now tap into and utilize. So I was wondering if we could kind of explore that.
This is talk about that.
We've
We're
been
really
doing that
meant
this
to
year.
talk about
Okay.
that finding that we tried this year.
Yeah, because I know it's more costly, but it's not more costly than finding new people. It's like, you know, I'm going to promote somebody within because I know who you are and you can do it versus bringing it from the outside.
And our pilot was really funded internally within their own budget because we weren't able to hire people.
Right.
And so we combined an ESP in special ed with an after-school program coordinator in that same school. And they are able to work a full 8 hours and do those 2 different jobs.
Yep.
And the person is very happy because they've wanted benefits for a long time.
Yep.
And we're meeting the needs of 2 different jobs. So it's in there. It's
Okay.
one of the ideas. It was under one of the broad categories, but the pilot is working really well. There's cost associated with it, but we've been able to cover the position, and that's been very helpful.
Yeah, I mean, you can even train them as a bus driver, right? But I do think, I also know I've known people that have left the district because they cannot get to 40 hours.
Yeah.
And they've gone to other districts to get benefits, 40 hours. And I'm like, you're amazing, like stay, what do we need to do to keep you? So that's all we need. We just need, you know, another 8 hours. So that was one. And then the second thing, and maybe it doesn't work, but, you know, tapping into parents, tapping into the PTOs. And maybe you guys have done that. I mean, we were, you know, elementary PTO, we were amazing people that have, you know, time and want to be there. Now it's kind of maybe tricky with having parents in buildings, but if you said, hey, I could answer the phone at the front desk, so the front desk person could go do the, you know, we have parents in this community that want to help. So I don't know if that's also a resource, a tool, a talent pool that you can tap into. With boundaries, of course, but yeah, no. So those were my ideas. That's it. The questions, but fantastic. This is me.
Wendy?
Yeah, I'm going to reiterate to the gratitude for all of your hard work and thinking about this coming together. Thank you. I think there's so much good stuff in here that I'm hoping that this energy just keeps going. I have a couple questions related to some of the ideas, seeing if we can't knock out a few of the ideas, having 1 or 2 that, and I know we're going to go into the priorities, but if we chose, for instance, that professional development conferences, giving teachers their own ability to decide on their professional development, recognizing that we're in a unique time. And so maybe school-wide PDs are not as ideal right now, or maybe don't make the most sense. Each needs trusting that the teachers will figure out what it is they need or what staff needs for their own personal professional development to continue being rock star teachers. If we did that, does that automatically take out some of the 2-hour meetings on a Friday? So I just didn't know what those, I know one of the first ideas about the no meetings weekly. If we go to a model where you're owning your own PD and conferences, can we, by policy, by law, then everyone does choose their own, and that is part of what they have to do, but we then can clear those Friday afternoons or whenever the PD times are done throughout the years, which then creates more time for them on their own for prep or mental, taking care of themselves mentally or whatever that looks like. I didn't know if there were required, I can't recall the required all district or all school PDs, or if that would take that away. I don't know if
there are some professional development that you want to maintain as a district and a school to be all on the same page and to be moving that target forward. And so I think the idea that came forward wasn't necessarily to eliminate all PD except for that one choice that the person chose, but to be very mindful and thoughtful in the requirements that we put on our employees for the school and district PD, but still give them that opportunity that makes sense for them to have their personalized approach and to have a budget to be able to do that they can count on.
So okay, I totally appreciate having the general. I just was wondering if there's a sweet spot in the middle where some can be reduced, that maybe we target the most necessary as a school or as a district for everybody to be on the same page. But given the unique circumstances we're in, we allow more individual ownership of some of that. If there's a sweet spot in the middle.
So Wendy, this is Dr. Hunt. I love what you're saying because it's really a foreshadow of where we're trying to go with our professional development. So this year, we actually have pulled back all PD pretty much, especially at the elementary schools where there tends to be more. We've pulled it back to, so that people are not, that doesn't mean that they don't still have meetings or collaboration in their schools,
Right.
but district-wide professional development, we have placed a hold on. In that time, we have been redesigning what professional development should look like as we've implemented a new evaluation tool. And the goal will, with that redesign, is to actually authentically model the instruction we want for students around having some of those choices. So this idea is really the first step into how do we create opportunities for our teachers to have more involvement in choosing their professional development and actually having it connect to those things that they want to be evaluated on or that they want to grow with during the year. So it's kind of given us that pause. And this would be, I think, a first layer of that.
Okay, so and then I would say that option of the meetings, having those meetings off that week, the first one, maybe those times are when some of this individual, whatever, the consideration of what works for an individual and just putting that, using that time, it as the appropriate moment to not just create more time and energy or time for the teacher to kind of like really lean into what he or she or they need, and then having the chance to develop the personal plan that could also help get you excited again about your profession. If you're leaning into where you've always wanted to learn something or add something onto your PD, but for time, haven't been able to do that. That I think those were really interesting ideas. Okay, thank you. And then the only other kind of comment or question that this full-time sub, back to Andrew's, the discussion and averaging out how much time in a day. I mean, there's a lot of questions I have there about pay. Do you pay them as a, because I know the pay is different if you're subbing and you're in the district than it is for a sub coming from outside the district, right? The hourly rate. But if this person, the idea of the co-teaching, the co-partnering, having somebody else who's kind of like almost got your back or that you're collaborating with, these roles could they maybe be also knowing that subbing, it sounds like there's plenty of subbing to be had right now at each school. And I don't know the numbers or the breakdown when there wasn't COVID, if subbing, I know that subbing in general is an issue or a challenge, but could these permanent people also maybe play a role in, for those, maybe some staff does want this co-partnering option, somebody helping lean in, or also play a rover. I love those terms, this idea of a rover, and how that could, so they aren't just coming in and taking any class in a given day, but having kind of a institutional role in co-teaching or learning some other, excuse me, aspects of things that would allow them. So let's say there is a day there isn't subbing necessary, but a super valuable person to have on campus that can help relieve some of this co-teaching, especially in maybe some of those really unique classes or grades where there is. What's that?
Use that person, and be like, hey, I think you might have missed this. And there we go.
Oh, no, that's okay. I didn't get to catch any of that, dang it. Anyway, I was just looking at the subs being also playing other roles as possible, not knowing how busy they'd be in a day, but maybe trying to, again, nail out a couple of these other ideas by hiring the sub. Maybe they go into a role if that turns out to be a priority of a co-teacher, or the partnering, the pilot thing, or another part of this the ideas, another one of the ideas, so that if as subbing challenges change, there's great roles and there's not this that they can, get more birds with one stone. I know I said that wrong, but those were just my thoughts. Thanks.
Thanks, Wendy. Okay, I have some thoughts, but before I went with some of my questions too, I kind of wanted to go to Jay and Mary and get a little bit of kind of thoughts of where you guys sat on the list that you guys just heard
Yeah,
and what stood out.
I mean, like I've said, one of the number one things is time. And so I think that this great solution, if we can try to swing it financially, of trying to get a more permanent subs in there and utilizing the ESPs that we already have. I have heard from other ESPs in the past that, yes, some of the reasons that they've left the district is because they have never been offered a full-time position. So alleviating some of those are fantastic. I've just tried to been taking some notes here as well as we've gone along. Yeah, I think that for right now, that's all I have.
Yeah, I think the list is really good. I can definitely see ideas that we've shared, like conversations we've had with Dr. Sorensen, like 12 months ago, they're now on the list and being looked at. So I think it's addressing a lot of our concerns. There's some new stuff that I thought was, oh yeah, it's a good idea, and will be helpful. I really like the idea of do things that are flexible so that we can, as moments change, those folks can shift and do something different. I like the idea that long-term subs have more skills besides just subbing, where they can jump in and do other things. I think the co-teaching thing is potentially really cool and important, especially for special education. I've co-taught before, not with in special education, in that kind of different setup, and it was awesome as a teacher. Like, it's so cool to have two people in the room, and you can be more effective, and depending on how you structure it, and it really calls for that. That's something I hadn't thought about, but it's potentially really useful for us. But yeah, kind of carried in what Mary said, I think the time thing is huge, and the more we can find shifts that allow us to be flexible, I think the better will be better.
And I had a question about the required PDs that we do have to have. So my understanding is we do have to have MTSS. We do have to have PLC. And obviously we do have to have faculty meetings. And so I like the idea of allowing at least a week, before those quarters, or you mentioned midterms and things like that. Just not only allows us more time, but also maybe allows some flexibility with students as well. I think that the more that the students also feel supported and mentally have the well-being and all of that, and feel that as well, obviously the better that we can be able to help them, and we can work with them in the classrooms too. Because then there's not this feeling of, oh my gosh, that from students that they're so overwhelmed as well. And they don't mean to, necessarily take it out on teachers, but, I think we probably can say that happens on both ends. But making sure that we're supporting each other as well. So I think that's an important piece to remember. I did have a question, sorry. What PDs were taken away this year?
So we were gonna have PDs that focused on utilizing some of the tools that we're introducing for standards-based competency. We scaled that way back. Some of that will come back, but it's by voluntary basis, not a blanket piece. And additional trainings that we were gonna do with our data system around ECRAS, we pulled all that back because it's just not gonna be very transformative and meet the purpose for which it's intended if we're stressed out trying to do it.
For sure. Thank you.
Thank you guys again. I do have a couple questions and some thoughts. My first obviously the theme is time, right? And I understand with bringing in more staff, more substitutes, that is something that we can 100% look at as we go into the budget, which we are starting. I'm guessing we'll start to see first round of budgets coming at us maybe in February, if not March. Knowing Todd, we see them super early. So I think on the substitute and getting more staff in, I think we hear you as a board that is a priority for us, and we will make that a priority with the budget and start working with that to see what we can do to help you guys. I know that, I believe that we've had staff, permanent substitutes on hire for the whole year and had a really hard time filling those. So, but let's just work together to see what we need to do as far as, I know that the compensation as far as even like lift fees now, I think it's $20 an hour at Deer Valley for the lift. So, whatever we need to do to kind of reevaluate where we're at with that stuff, we will help and do that. I know I heard bonuses quite a bit through that too. I know it hasn't been brought back up, and I know that that's something Todd, we can have him look at, but I also, where we're at with going through master planning with the teacher raises and everything. So to see where we might have some flexibility to put some money into something like that. As far as, and I love that Mary brought it up, but like it's the mental health of the student and the teachers combined. So what we can do to help you guys both work together. I did love the idea of no homework, but I don't know if that is if those are great weeks to do with the no meeting weeks, that works with the staff to work together with that. I know it's a little different on an elementary school level, but I think the no meeting week sounds like something we can just give you direction to start implementing as soon as possible. That would give everybody a little bit more time. I also didn't know if maybe there's one Friday a month we could just say also no meetings, that everybody, has a full prep day. And maybe those are like 1 month. I don't know if that's too much for a high school secondary level to say no homework for that weekend, that we have no meetings. But to just give somebody some more time, and if that's to the end of the year, that we can just kind of build that in more quickly. Because I know at the end of the day, we know that these have to be long-term solutions. And sadly, I don't think COVID's going away tomorrow, probably not next year. So, but if we can do stuff immediately to help relieve this stress of the staff, but I think also as a board, we want to make sure that these are long-term solutions as well, that we can go in. So looking at both of those. And I love the idea too of the teacher spaces, especially as we are going into master planning. But we have amazing companies in our community that specialize in this, that have excelled in this, like Skull Candy. So I don't know if there's a way that we could actually reach out to some of those companies and see if they can help sponsor some of those spaces sooner than later. And maybe they're even, I know in the high school there's some spots, but maybe there's some spots that, for the teachers, but also maybe it's for student and teachers where everybody gets a minute to go out and take a break together and enjoy each other, give each other a break. So that is kind of what I was thinking. And then as far as the ES, where we are with the subs and the ESPs, if there's any way, I don't know if there's anything we can do right away to increase any of those to full-time. But I think that would be something that we would love to do if we could. If I'm hearing everybody correctly, that if, if that's a quick one that we can bump some of those up immediately to 40-hour positions, then again, I know that this is a budget thing and I know we have to look at all of that. So I don't know if maybe by our next meeting in February, we can have an idea, or if we have to call another meeting. I think we're willing as a board to sit down as many times as we need to just start coming up with some resolutions to this.
The good news is we've already asked our staff who would like additional hours. And some of them came back and said, I would take it if you would provide the additional benefits. Or some have said, I will just do additional hours because I need it. So I think the time frame you're requesting is very reasonable.
Perfect. And I know, and I just feel like it had been thrown out there quite a bit, and that was the Friday, the potential that I think we had 4 Fridays, right? That we had the ability to maybe use as.
Right, that would be a calendar adjustment. So we
Correct.
would decide on 4 specific Fridays, just having a day that becomes your teacher time and instead of kids on campus. So we reschedule those 4 days. That's based on USBE's guidelines on being able to extend some professional learning opportunities for staffs with reasonable notice to families. It used to be a 90-day requirement, that's changed. So we could advertise those and then have more Friday flexibility. Because the other thing we didn't mention today, but it is very true, in Utah, we have about 32 hours of content that is required by state statute annually, that teachers are often just, we try to schedule it and calendar it for you, but it's, and you're wanting stuff your school year at the beginning of the year, you're not really wanting to sit in front of the modules, right? Or you'd rather do them over the summer and maybe not. But anyway, there is true requirement that we can't really work around, but that might be one way to be able to get that stuff kind of finished without the pressure of also having a school day.
Well, and I think it's important for teachers to know that these are also state requirements, because then it doesn't feel like, well, it's just our district doing it themselves. So that's important as well.
And the state's obviously rolling out some of those trainings. So for instance, that human trafficking that you all just finished before winter break, that was how many hours did it take you? Truly. Be honest, it's okay.
Half an hour?
Not bad, okay.
No.
It depended on
Yeah. Depending on
how
if
well
you
your tech
actually-
worked.
How your time works.
Some people had some issues with the videos and different things, but yeah.
Okay. And we do have, we're going to have some state required modules on equity, which are about 10 modules. I know the first one is 90 minutes, and that just explains the policy, and then we go into the details of that. So again, that'll be a state requirement, state rollout training, but again, we gotta find some, we gotta have the time
Right.
to be able to do those.
I have a question about the 4 Fridays that you mentioned through USBE. Would we have to make those up?
No.
Because
that
they
be
would
a
still be-
calendar adjustment.
Okay.
Yeah, and that USBE provision changed at the same time that all of this was happening like a week ago, a week or 2 ago.
And you're talking about doing that for this year. Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, we had thrown that out, and I guess my question to you all would be, and I talked to some of the admin about this too, if this is something that you guys would like, is take those 4 Fridays, do you want them consecutively? Is it better to have them once a month? It's hard for us to know what is gonna be the most beneficial for you guys in your buildings.
Yeah.
So maybe that's also something we could kind of.
One thing we talked about last time was the idea maybe for those Fridays, it might be good to do an all district survey of teachers about that. With questions that split us from elementary and secondary. I know one of the concerns I've heard from some teachers is obviously we've had a lot of absenteeism to start the semester. And the more like the time is necessary, also losing student time is feeling more and more like a problem as we're trying to get kids caught up. They're not coming back from a week or 2 weeks of being on with COVID and other things. So I think it might be useful, and not just from us, because obviously we can send the members, but not to all faculty, asking faculty, what do you think about Fridays? Would you like the structure, do you want it consecutively, we better spread it out, those kinds of things. So then you get a good sense of like, where are all the teachers at, where's the difference in secondary and elementary, et cetera. Because so the pros and cons, if you have that day, it may give you a chance to reach out to some of those kids that have been gone and like text them up. You also then lose that day, even if it's only an hour with kids that have been there. So I think a bigger survey of the whole district would be super useful with those questions.
Perfect. We will do that. And I think that's our concern too, as a board, is leaving more time with students. I know, I mean, I am beyond grateful to each and every one of you guys for what you guys have done for the last 2 years.
Thank you.
So I hope you know that as a board, we are beyond grateful for what you guys do every day and the stresses that you've been in. And I know that sometimes the decisions we make in these seats are the decisions that you guys were hoping for or the easiest to hear. But the support and respect, and I hope you know that we are just so grateful, and we're trying our best to just make sure that we are keeping students in mind, you guys in mind, and our admin in mind, and
Yes, and we definitely appreciate, like I said before, being able to sit at the table with you and go through these ideas, and this is fantastic. Thank you.
well, I feel like we were able to kind of give you guys some direction. Do we have, I think Anne might have, Wendy, do you have anything else that you guys want to add or talk about?
I had a quick, this is so logistic and silly, but the student, in terms of the lengthening lunch, like at secondary, are we maxed out, like thinking about having, I think you said it's 20-minute lunch or 25? What were you saying at the secondary level?
Yeah, right now we're looking at about 29 minutes.
29, Wendy.
Okay, and are those, I mean, this is so practical, but 29 minutes, teachers, there's some teachers on duty, I imagine, there's staff on duty at lunchtime, correct?
Not at the secondary level.
Not at secondary, okay, so could
Admin
we,
mostly.
okay, so is there, and is this, I don't even know if this is a possibility, but taking, and again, I know how important class time is, but if we're looking at time as an essential component of this, you take 3 to 5 minutes off the classes that day, add that to the lunchtime. Is that even possible? Are we then violating the time in class in a day? It seems to me that gives teachers a little bit more time. It also gives students a longer lunch. Just trying to address both those components. I didn't know if that was a possibility. What, changing a schedule? And I know in the middle of the year, it's probably not possible, but just a consideration, can we reduce a few minutes off each class?
All right, Dr. Gilday said that they'll research that and then come back with that. So, and I know Anne has another question, but maybe what we could
Can I
do.
make one comment there?
Yeah, of
One thing
course.
that will be coming to the board is that as we're thinking about the next 5 years and looking at different opportunities for students to demonstrate competency, that will all be done by policy, and the instructional minutes in that case become something that become part of that policy. So I think as we restructure that policy, there's some great opportunity there to look at student schedules. So that'll all be part of this realignment, and I think we can do even more than just that. We can think outside the box.
Perfect.
Thanks, Dr. Hunt. It was the policy that was my question, so I appreciate that.
Just for reference, our second period class is 12 minutes longer than all the rest of the classes. So if it's something where we can take that little bit much more and just throw it into a lunch with them, I'm sure any student would be grateful to have that little extra, even if it wasn't completely related to spread out.
Are you guys still doing 3 lunches or not?
We're back to 2, so that's another thing. When we were doing our 3 lunches, we did have 1 lunch solid. Our second lunch was split, and then we had a third lunch which was solid. I did know that a lot of students in that second split lunch wouldn't go back to class after, and I don't know if that was a very good way of utilizing that time, because that would probably added into our argument about being off campus and getting rid of that. A lot of students, they would not return after the second period because it doesn't seem useless. I'm just gonna go out, have my lunch, and I'll come back for third period. They're using it as an extended lunch. So right now we are back.
Got it. Okay.
So the 12 minutes that you guys use, that's for the announcements, right?
For my,
Right, okay.
Those aren't every day.
no, those are every other day, I think, where it's just on like.
Red days, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just on red days.
Yeah, but we can definitely, I mean, that takes, and of course, secondary, that takes just some research on the required 990 hours to it, so just and all that stuff, so we'll just have to options and then talk about AP hours and all the different things, right? So just want to make sure we got short change, but that we consider.
Yes, because that's also a good point. We've also got we talked about this last night, that the AP high school teachers also,
Want
are
more time
under,
with us.
right.
And dual enrollment, we have some requirements for those courses, so we just want to make sure we just don't want to do anything unintentionally, but I appreciate that idea and suggestion too, and I don't think there's any ultimately that we can't schedule around the 40 to 45 minutes. I'm sure we just have to do the due diligence work.
So we just keep elementary in mind, because I know it's secondary up here, right, because Cheryl said we were only 35 minutes at lunch, so I know Mary had said 45, so I don't know if that's across the board. But
I think that it's longer at some of the.
Okay. Yeah, perfect. No, I just wanted to touch on something Emily said about coming back from break. We have winter break coming up, and this place is gonna be off the charts packed. That Monday coming back without a mask mandate and without tests to stay, I just as a parent think about what Monday morning's gonna feel like. So imagine you guys in the classrooms are gonna imagine what that day feels like. So my hope is we're on the backside of Omicron, my hope, but I just don't know if that week, if there's anything that we need to do for reentry that we're allowed to do, legally allowed to do, it's just really more of a mental repositioning to get us back in, and we're all going to be safe and fine to get through this. And just, I think just learning what we did about coming back from Christmas break, that was an incredibly stressful week for everybody. Yeah. So sure, we could do another test to start if that's something the board wants.
Yeah, I think that's something we can definitely, work at. I think we did put another testing day in at Ecker to kind of help with that, which I think was
It'll be the next 3 Tuesdays from 7:45 to 8:45 is an additional opportunity, so we'll still have Echo Center going like normal every school day, 7:15 to 9:15, but then for Basin, just if it's easier for people to get over there. And that could be again asymptomatic or asymptomatic individuals, students and staff.
And I do know that we got, I think, we have N95 or K95, whatever, masks have come in for all of our students. We have the smaller mask and the bigger masks that I think have been distributed or will be. So that is, that one's hard. I mean, we've been rolling with that one. So I'm just trying to understand the constant changes that keep coming at us.
And that I think makes it hard for everybody, board, the staff, all staff, the students, right? Because one thing that you feel is solid one day changes the next day, and that's what makes it harder, I think, for all of us to maneuver. It's easier to be on, solid ground than quicksand, right? So as we make a decision, right, a policy decision, we have to always make sure we're doing it.
So what are the remote options at this point? Because that is one thing that, on the flip side of that, 75% of our teachers that we surveyed obviously really were very concerned and wanted to go remote with, and of course we just didn't have that availability, as we found out within days and days that go by the legislature. But I don't want to take away from your agenda or anything like that, but I know that teachers are very concerned about what are we doing and what are our options, really, truly.
Who has the most up-to-date version of the remote?
So
Here we,
I got to sit through a lovely webinar this morning.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
Really realistically, the goal of the legislation is really to keep kids in school and to minimize remote. That doesn't mean that there aren't situations where remote would be considered. But what it would mean is that we would have to complete a specific plan. They haven't said yet what has to be in the plan. And it would first need to be approved by the local school board. And if the school board believed that it was the right thing to do and decided that it would move forward, then it goes to a team that is the governor, the speaker of the house, and the state superintendent And my assumption is, from what they've said, is that they would review the plan and make decisions on a case-by-case basis, largely based on health concerns more than other.
Correct. So from what I understand from reading the bill, and it's, I'm not in any capacity to to understand it completely, but from what I understand, that we are able as a school district to set a threshold for our teachers and our students, that if we reach a specific, and that would be up to us to come up with, is a threshold of what percentage or what number of students and staff or positive cases would we be comfortable with to make such a suggestion, and knowing that you've got to have something that is going to be realistic, that could that would pass, to not waste our time either.
Yeah, and I think that it talks about a minimal case,
Mhm.
which would be UDOH's recommendation around what it, so that you're at least close, so that you're not setting local boundaries that don't match what are the recommendations.
So is that still the 30 cases? Or I don't know the question.
I don't think, well, 30 cases is what the Department of Health suggested initially.
Okay.
At this point, those are some of the big question marks that we have. With any legislation that's written, we'll get a board rule that will clarify some of that for us. But I don't expect we're going to have that immediately.
Okay, so we still need clarification. Got it. Thank you.
Perfect. So
Yeah, I think, to be really fair and transparent with our teachers, the goal, at least from the legislature, was try to reduce remote learning. So I don't imagine that it's going to be easy to.
Oh, no,
permission to
not
do
at
that.
all. No.
Not that we
completely
wouldn't
agree.
try if it was important, but I just don't know that,
That's obvious.
that it should be our first thought or first option. Because we may put a lot of time and energy into it and then find out we can't.
Right, so do those, I know that there was also the bill that stated about making sure that we're in school for 4 days, and then we have an option to be remote 1 day as long as we were in school for 4 days.
Yeah,
So
that
we're
this supersedes that.
Okay, that was what I need to know. Thank you.
So my next step, I think our next step is, I think we kind of gave you guys some direction. Do you guys feel, do you guys need any more clarification on some direction to move forward with? And maybe our next board meeting is on the 15th of February, right before we go into our next break. So maybe we could just have that as a line item. We could get some updates, kind of where we stand with what happened and follow up. So again, if you guys, I know I'm normally here for our board meetings. In the meantime, if things come up and change, as they do, because this is always very fluid, I think then we have the ability to pivot again and make another meeting. We cannot sit down again. But do you guys is everybody feel comfortable with that? If we kind of get some updates, and if some of that low-lying fruit, if we can get that into place as soon as possible, I think that would be the board's direction, is to make sure that we just start moving forward. And keep moving forward, and then as you guys need us as well, then create the red flags, whatever, and we can kind of meet together, but if not, we'll plan on the 15th. Wendy, are you good?
I'm good. Thank you.
Perfect. Dr. Gilday, are you good?
Excellent. No,
Okay.
I got 15 things written down, and then some next steps. As notes, so we will bring that back on the 15th.
Perfect. Well, can I get a motion to adjourn this work session?
I make a motion to adjourn this work session.
Perfect. All in favor? Aye. Aye, perfect. We will adjourn until our board meeting, our regular session on February 15th at 4 p.m.
Thanks, everyone.